Guys, it's Monica from MonicaLeonel.com, and you are watching Monica Today. No, I'm kidding, guys. I'm gonna actually start removing that part from the videos because it's kind of annoying, and it was a very bad idea to include them to begin with. So today's video is a little different than usual. I don't really have time to edit the video today because I'm going to the theater tonight, and I'm also I have a guest coming in town. Patrick's brother will be here all through next week, so I have a lot of preparation to do for that. And also I think I'm going to try to stop doing a lot of post-production on these videos because it is very time consuming, and I definitely need to be focused on my fiction and less on the videos, to be honest. So today's video is all about Snowpiercer, which is this movie that came out, I think it actually came out last year, but it came out in the US this year, and I saw it probably a month ago. It was completely mind-blowing. I have so many questions from watching this movie, and I've been wanting to talk about it for a while, but I just haven't had time to sit down and think about what I wanted to say about it. So today we're going to talk about it. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, obviously this video is going to have tons of spoilers in it, so you may want to turn it off and come back and watch it later, or not, I guess. If you don't want to watch the video, that's totally fine. But if you have seen the movie, I would love for you to think about these questions and let me know your thoughts, because I'd love to talk about it. I think the movie was really interesting, and there were some issues with it, but overall it was definitely one of the most creative movies I've seen in a while. So I'm very, very excited about it, and I would love to have a discussion about it in the comments. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick overview of the movie for anybody who is still watching but hasn't seen the movie. I don't recommend continuing to watch. I recommend going to see the movie first and then coming back and watching, but if you are still watching, then that's fine. I will tell you what the movie's about. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I liked and disliked about it, and then I'll get into the 5 questions. Alright, so first of all, the overview of the movie. It's a post-apocalyptic movie. The idea is that humans have tried to overcorrect for climate change and have turned the world into an ice age, but there are still this cohort of humans left on the planet, and they are stuck on this perpetual motion train, or like it's a perpetual engine. There's something about it. I can't remember, and I'm not sure, so I don't want to say exactly how the science of it works, but basically they're stuck on this train. It's got 1,001 cars on it, and it was built by this like crazy, genius billionaire before the Ice Age happened. And his idea was that he wanted to connect all the continents with one train, and that it was going to travel around the world for 365 days, and every single year it would make one rotation around the Earth. So this train is a closed ecosystem, and it's a self-sustaining system. There's like animals on board, there's an aquarium with tanks, and it was supposed to be kind of this like luxury train liner, I guess, or I don't know what you would call it. It's like a luxury train that people buy tickets to, and then they get to travel around the world for a year. So it's a really cool concept. Yeah, that's basically that's the general premise of the movie. So the movie itself, it starts out with it's Chris Evans. Chris Evans is Captain America. So he's in this movie, but he's completely unrecognizable. I had no idea it was him for a very long time until I was like, who is that? And I realized it was Chris Evans. So the train is divided into social classes, and the whole entire movie is essentially an allegory for class warfare. Chris Evans is at the back of the train, the tail end. They're called tailors, and they are living in a very oppressed society or state. They take up, I don't know how many cars, it's not very clear in the movie how many cars they take up, but there are, hundreds, potentially thousands of people living on top of each other in very close quarters. At the front of the train, which none of these people have actually seen, There is supposedly this guy named Wilfred. He is he's the engine master essentially, and he's also the guy who built the train. So he's kind of that genius billionaire, and there are also other passengers. There's middle class passengers, and then the front class or the first class passengers are at the front. Unfortunately, nobody really knows what's going on or like how people are living in other areas because this tail end is cut off from the rest of the train. Yeah, so basically it starts out, it's very, very graphic, and I actually had a huge problem with this, and I really hated the movie up until some of the warfare scenes kind of ended, because the scenes were very graphic. It was very bloody and gory, and there were a lot of there's a ton of disturbing imagery in this movie. It's almost like a comic book in some sense, which makes sense because it came from it has its roots in comics, but it's definitely filmed that way, and there's just a lot of weird things that happen at the beginning of the movie where I was kind of creeped out by it. And it also almost had this, like, especially with Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton was this character named Mason. She's essentially like the ministry like director or something. I don't remember her exact title, but she basically she has this like Wes Anderson feel to her. She's just kind of one of those characters, and there's kind of this like darkness and then like this creepiness and then this comic relief in Tilda Swinton about the beginning that I didn't really love. And I'll be honest that some of the fighting scenes, I actually haven't even seen them still. I've only seen parts of them because they were so graphic that I had to like shut my eyes, and I asked Patrick like let me know when it's over so that I can get back into the movie. That being said, the movie was definitely addictive. Like, I couldn't stop watching, even though I really was hating it, and I just didn't like it at all. I was like, I don't get this movie. It's creepy, it's gross. Even though I hated it, I still had to know how it ended. So it was definitely one of those very compelling movies in that sense. The pivotal scene for me where I started to really love the movie was there was a scene with teachers and students, and the teacher is played by Alison Pill, who she was really creepy. You guys will, I mean, if you watch a lot of TV, you probably know her from HBO's The Newsroom, where she plays like this cute little blonde girl who's kind of like sarcastic and funny. But in this movie, she was super creepy. She was like, I don't even know how to describe her. She was like the Mother Goose from hell or something. She was a pregnant woman. She was teaching this like creepy class of, like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and but I like that scene a lot because through that storytelling device, we basically got to finally understand more about the world. So there was this little video about Wilfred and how he kind of saved the people that are still on the train, and how if the train stopped moving, they would all die. And she also explained she explained a bunch of like cool little stories. So at this point in the movie, that was where I really was like, oh, I'm so curious about this world. I think it's like a fascinating storytelling device, and I just got really, really curious about everything that was going on in the movie, and really started loving the movie after that point, because it did get a lot less graphic, and I would say the scenes right before that were actually the most graphic. And I know probably for some people the movie kind of slows down at that point, but for me it was actually really good because I'm more into the world and less into like the action stuff. So anyway, so those are the things that I liked and disliked about the movie. Another thing, I guess one other thing I want to say about it was that I loved that it was like unapologetically an allegory. Like, there were a bunch of plot holes, but I really feel like you can't get stuck on the plot holes in this movie because it's so like blatantly like it's surreal. There's like a magical realism to it, and it's so blatant in the movie and the way it's done that you can't really like. It's just so obviously an allegory and like very blunt about what it's trying to say. So I really love that about it, and I think a lot of people will have problems with that, and that's probably why it hasn't gotten as great of ratings as it should be getting. But I actually really like that. I like that the director was very specific in like, I'm just going to make this movie about this, and I'm going to say what I want. So I really love that part about it. Okay, so now I'm going to, given the fact that it was an allegory, there were a lot of pieces in the movie that I did not understand. That I have like some theories on them, but not a ton. And I would really love to pose these questions, and I'd love to know what you think, especially if you saw the movie. So the first is that there's this samurai bridge scene, and basically Curtis, who is the Chris Evans character, he's fighting his way to the front of the train, and he gets to this car, and the doors open, and there's just like tons and tons of like samurai looking people in the train, and he's got to fight his way through them, and he's not expected to win, and it's said later in the movie why he's not expected to win. So he's supposed to fight his way through these characters, but they bring this fish. It's like this huge, like 18, 25, I don't know how long, like 25 inches long fish, and they hold it up, and the samurais essentially like just make this big show of like slicing it and having the blood like drip everywhere, and then they gut the fish, and it's like super gross. And I was trying to figure out like, what is this supposed to symbolize? Like, what purpose does this have in here? I have a couple theories. One is, well, I think I only have one theory. So one of my theories at first was that it was about religion, because the fish symbolizes Christianity. So I thought, maybe it's about that. But the longer I've thought about it, the more I think it has to do with, so later on in the movie, the Tilda Swinton character, her character's name is Mason, they're in like this car that has a huge fish tank or like aquarium, and she talks very specifically about how they can only serve sushi once a year because they can only remove fish once a year, and they have to remove a very certain, like a specific number of fish, and that's, and if they remove more, or if they don't remove them, then it messes up the whole ecosystem, because the aquarium is a closed system. So my thinking is that the fish has to do, it's kind of like it's foreshadowing. It has to do with the idea that right now on the train, because it's also a closed ecosystem, they have to gut the fish. They have to remove a certain number of fish because, and it ends up being later on that that is the ending, is that the reason that they have this rebellion in the first place is so that they can have just some casualties, and that they can remove a certain percentage of the population. So that's my new theory. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments. So question number 2 is about I call him Captain Never Die. I've since looked up, and his actual character in the book or in the movie is named Franco the Elder. Basically, he's the minister's right-hand man, essentially, and one of her military guys, and he pretty much does not ever die. I swear, they kill this guy multiple times in the movie, and he doesn't die. And so I was trying to figure out what does that symbolize. Is it that the bad guys keep coming back, and even once you kill them, they just come back, and and I was thinking about I don't know, terrorists, how you kill the leader of the terrorist, it doesn't wipe out the terrorist organization. There's just a new leader that comes into play. And I'm starting to think it's not that anymore, the more I've researched this online. So there's another character in the movie called Franco the Younger, or something similar to that. And it's basically I'm guessing it's probably his son, maybe. So his son, this Franco the younger guy, he dies in the movie, like towards the fight scene, the bridge scene. He dies around that time, and he dies at the hands of this character named Yona. And she's the daughter of this other guy who's kind of like the gatekeeper for all. He's built all the gates between all the different cars. So my new thought, or my new theory, is that the guy, he essentially just wants revenge. So someone took his son or his younger brother, whoever it was, someone took his loved one. So now he wants to go and take that guy's loved one or daughter. And it might just be this idea of revenge, how, people, huge political battles and physical battles as well happen because people are they're kind of repeating history. They're going after people who have hurt them in the past, and they, people who are different than them, they just see them as threats. So I thought that was another possibility. And the idea that, the younger ones are the ones that end up suffering, that was also a theme throughout the movie, is just this idea of like innocents who suffer because of the decisions that the elders make. So that's another theory. Again, go to the comments if you have any theories on that. The third thing that I found really, really odd was, so at some point in the movie, the tail end of the cars, or of the train, they eat these protein bars, and like later as they go through the train, they find out how the protein bars are made. The protein bars are made through this huge vat of like just disgusting like cockroach type bugs, and they're huge and they're gross. And Curtis, the main character, he uncovers this fact, like what these protein bars are made out of, and the look on his face is just so horrified that it's like they've been eating these protein bars for all these years, and he is just absolutely like just disgusted by it. And he's so disgusted by it that he keeps it a secret from all the other people. So later on, though, he once he gets towards the front of the train, he confesses that the way that they survived before these protein bars came into play is that they were essentially cannibals. They were eating each other, they were eating babies, and they were also once, in order to stop eating the babies, they had people who were cutting off their own limbs to feed to the rest of the people, and it was just really confusing. I couldn't figure out why he was so horrified about the bugs when the alternative was eating each other, essentially. Like, it was very, very confusing. So that's another thing. The fourth thing was there was this sacrifice at the end. So the Curtis character, and this ties in really well with the last one, the Curtis character, he was never able to cut off any of his limbs and never able to make that sacrifice for other people while they were in that phase of like eating limbs from people in order to save, make sure that they didn't have to kill anyone. He was never able to do that. So towards the end, he finds this kid who had been taken from the tail end and was brought to the front engine room in order to be part, like essentially to fill in as a part on the engine. And he wants to save this kid. So the kid is like stuck under the floor, and he's stuck in like this contraption of gears that he couldn't really get through it. So it was a little confusing because I didn't understand how he got under the floor to begin with and like as part of the machine, and then B, I didn't understand. So obviously like the engine stopped or something and he was able to get through. Like, that's the only explanation I can think of. But for Curtis to save him, he sticks his arm in, and it makes like no sense to me. It just seems like, why wouldn't you just shut off the engine and then pull him out? I guess that's one of those plot holes that I shouldn't really overanalyze too much, but it really bothered me. And I understand that the whole point of it was that he, broke off his own arm and essentially like got to be the sacrifice at that point, and it kind of tied into the end, but it was just a little confusing, and I didn't understand like A, how the kid got down there, and then B, like why Curtis is only like the only thing he could think to do was just jam his arm into the machine and lose his arm in order to pull this kid out. And the last thing that I had questions about was the character of Yona. I didn't really understand why she was a seer. Like, it was just weird. Like, and I understand, like, it's weird on so many levels because there's no other magic in this movie, essentially. So for her to be a seer, it was just really confusing. And then the other thing was just that she, like, what does that symbolize? Does it symbolize that that children can see things that adults can't? That's really my only theory, is this idea that, like, maybe like because she was young and because she was innocent, she was able to see all these things that no one else could figure out. So that's my current theory, but if you have another one, leave it in the comments. So those are my 5 questions. I'm going to review them again because I know I went through them just kind of really quickly. First is, what does the fish in the samurai/bridge scene symbolize? The second is, why does Franco the Elder keep coming back to life even though the characters continue to kill him over and over again? The third one is, why is Curtis horrified by the fact that they've been eating bugs this whole time when the alternative was to eat babies? The fourth one is, why did Curtis throw his arm into the machine at the end? Why did he feel like that was his only course of action? And the fifth one was, why is Yona a seer? And why was that character important to the entire movie? So I actually have a ton more to say about this movie, but I'm sure this video is already getting long, so I'm not going to say it all. I really recommend, if you get the chance, go see the movie. I think it's a great movie. There are, obviously there are some issues with it still. I do think that there are some things that I probably would have done differently, but I think it's one of the most imaginative movies of the year, and really in the last 5 years probably that I've seen. So I really recommend the movie. I think it's it's definitely something that you'll be thinking about for several weeks to come. And once you watch the movie, come back and talk to me about it in the comments, because I would love to know your theories on the questions that I have. And also, I would love for you to pose your own questions, just because, the movie was a thinker, and I think it's really worth thinking about. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you again next week.